Husker Nation, it's a loaded show. 2 parts. First part, Dylan Raiola. Let's assess his performance so far this year. Is he elite? Is he clutch? Is he not? Is he living up to expectations? Is he not? Where is he? Where is he at? Let's have an honest conversation. Also, Matt Rhule held his press conference and he responded to the rumors connecting Matt Rhule and Penn State. Don't go anywhere. Let's chat. Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net, also carrikerchronicles.com. Ladies and gentlemen, it's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true. It's just science. Now, if you're like me and you appreciated the way Dylan Raiola played on that game-winning 81-yard touchdown drive versus the Maryland Turtles, smash the like button. If you haven't done so yet, as always, make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell. It helps us out here. Also, it'll help you stay on top of all the breaking news and crazy stuff that's going on this week. Now, this show is about Dylan Raiola. It's not supposed to be a deep dive. I actually may do another show as the season progresses on Dylan, more of a deep dive. But just full disclosure, I am recording the first part of this show, the first 85% of this show, before Matt Rhule's weekly Monday press conference. I don't know what he's going to say at the press conference. Obviously, there's a lot of rumor and innuendo, but I will come back and I will record the end of this show after Matt Rhule's press conference later today. But let's take a look at Dylan's season stats so far. He's passed for 1,591 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So if you want to be a decent quarterback, you want a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. You want to be completing, this day and age, 70% of your passes or more. And if you want a chance to be a really good quarterback, you want at least a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And he's got that and a little bit more on the season as a whole. Now, as we dive more into these stats, also his QBR is 68.4. As we start to break down these stats more individually, look at the 3 conference games, our last 3 games. He's thrown for 762 yards in those 3 games, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So not quite the 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio that you're looking for, at least through the first 3 Big Ten conference games. And he's completing 70.2% of his passes. Now, if you look just at Maryland specifically, and it's a 1-game scenario, as we know, 4 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He threw for 260 pass yards, 108, and I pointed this out in my gut reaction after the game, but 108 of those 260 yards were in the fourth quarter. 42% of his pass yards on the day, on Saturday, were in the quarter that matters the most. Now, if you look at the month of September versus October, his completion percentage in September was 74.2%. In October, so far, 67.9%. You go quarter by quarter by quarter. First quarter, he's completed 69.8% of his passes with 3 touchdowns to 1 interception. What's interesting to me about this is Nebraska plays the best in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. When you look at his completion percentage, this is actually his worst quarter when it comes to his completion percentage. Second quarter and third quarter. I've come to not love those quarters as much as of recently in Husker games, but here we go. In the second quarter, he's actually completing 75.5% of his passes. He has 8 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, and a high completion percentage in the second quarter. Now, Nebraska did score some points against the Turtles on Saturday in the second quarter, to be fair. Third quarter, completing 70% of his passes, 1 touchdown to 2 interceptions on the season in the third quarter. The fourth quarter, third down is known as the money down. And the fourth quarter is what matters the most. What do you do in the fourth quarter? Any good basketball player, any good basketball shooter will tell you that you can be streaky. You can make 10 in a row. It's easy to shoot that 11th shot. What if you go 5 for 10? Not so hard to shoot the 11th shot. What if you're 0 for 10? And the game's on the line, and you're supposed to be the best player, and you're supposed to be the guy that makes the key play at the right time, and the biggest, most important part of the game. Are you still willing to take that shot or not? Dylan Raiola proved on Saturday he's still willing to take that shot. On Saturday, he made that shot. But you look at the fourth quarter, he's playing his best ball in the fourth quarter, when the game matters the most, when it counts the most, when the stakes are the highest. 78.3% completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in the fourth quarter on the season so far. Again, break it down a little bit more. 1st and 10. All right, first downs, 1st and 10s. Completing 72.7% of his passes, and he's been sacked 5 times. Now, why does that matter? Because 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 7 is a whole lot better than 2nd and 12, 13, 14, 15, or 16. And Nebraska's been in those scenarios a few more times than they would have liked so far this year. All right, the money down, 3rd down. That's the down he's been sacked the most, but let's be honest. That's also when defenses have all their nickel and dime and speed nickel and all these different situations, and they got their blitz packages, so they're going to come after you the most, unless it's like 3rd and 1, 2, or 3 possibly. But he's completing over 70% of his passes on 3rd downs. Now, it was interesting. The quarterback grades from week 7. All right. Desmond Williams, who was in Dylan Raiola's recruiting class, along with Julian Sain, who was the number 1 quarterback in Dylan Raiola's recruiting class. Dylan was like 2 or 3. Desmond was somewhere in the top 2, 3, or 4. Graded out the highest of anybody in the Big Ten Conference. Fernando Mendoza. Indiana goes on the road and gets a monster win up in Eugene. He might be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Was the 3rd highest graded quarterback. Malik Washington, true freshman. A lot of young quarterbacks. Dude, the quarterback play in the Big Ten Conference this year is as good and deep as I've ever seen it. Was right ahead of Dylan. But all these guys got A's. Dylan got an A-. I was mildly surprised simply because he threw 3 interceptions on Saturday. But obviously they thought he graded out and played well as an overall whole. I do wonder if they maybe weighted the 4th quarter a little bit extra, because again, that's when he played his best ball. That's when it matters the most. I thought this was interesting because all 3 of these things were happening at the same time on Saturday. Northwestern, by the way, Penn State, speedy recovery to Drew Aller. They lost their quarterback. And so much of what happens in the 4th quarter comes back to the quarterback. Okay, but we're going to come back to that in a minute. But Northwestern, final minutes against Penn State. Nebraska, final minutes against Maryland. Indiana, final minutes against Oregon. All these games are starting to come down to the 4th quarter more and more and more in not just the Big Ten, but in college football in general. It was interesting. This is per Mitch Sherman on X. Nebraska quarterback Dylan Raiola on the final 3-yard catch by Dane Key to win 34-31 at Maryland. And I quote, 1 hand to go to win a game. And I quote, Raiola said, and I quote, he blacked out, and I end quote, when he released the throw. He was on another level, according to Mitch, on the 81-yard drive, completing 4 of 5 throws, completing 80% of his passes for 72 yards when it mattered the most. So you come back and you give general thoughts on Dylan. Here are my general overall thoughts on Dylan so far in his sophomore season. Is he elite? No, not yet. All right. My preseason expectations for Dylan that I said here on this show. Does he have the potential? Heisman, All-American? Yes. Is the floor also lower than anybody wants to talk about? Yes. What was realistic? I didn't think he was going to have a bad year. My point is you never know what's going to happen. But what I thought was very realistic and most likely to happen was some sort of all Big Ten honors. Now, was that 1st team, 2nd team, 3rd team, honorable mention? I said Dylan Raiola, who is the most experienced true sophomore quarterback in the entire country. He started more games, played more snaps, threw more passes than any other true freshman last year in the entire country. Okay, has the experience, has the Dana Holgorsen, has weapons. Like, it's fair to expect him to have some sort of all Big Ten type honors. I don't know if that's 1st team. I don't know if it's honorable mention or 3rd team. And to me, there's a very good chance he could end up in that mix at the end of the year. All right, now I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors before we proceed on with some more of my thoughts on Dylan so far this year. I want to give a shout out to DPS Concrete Construction. As always, you can find them at dpsconstruction.net. Retaining wall work, concrete work, they are the experts. No one does it better. If this is the type of work you need done or someone you know needs this type of work done, go to dpsconstruction.net. If this is the type of work you do and you're looking for a great company to work for or a boss to work for, Jason Armstrong is that guy. DPS Construction is that company. Again, check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, shout out to Husker Auto Group. Husker Chevrolet and GMC have aggressive pricing on 2025 model Silverados and Sierras up to $11,000 off of MSRP. APR as low as 2.9% financing with approved credit. See dealer for details. Now, Husker Chevrolet and GMC also has a great selection of 3/4-ton Silverado and Sierra trucks. Husker Chevrolet and GMC is locally owned and operated. Husker Auto Group is conveniently located off North 27th Street and I-80 in North Lincoln. Also available 24/7 at huskerautogroup.com. Now, when it comes to Dylan as an overall whole, those were kind of my preseason expectations of what I thought was reasonable and fair. Obviously, he could play better than that. Obviously, things can go either way. Going into his 3rd year, the expectations will reasonably and fairly increase. But I must point out, not every situation in a game is created equal. Some games matter more to fans, some games are more high profile, some situations within games have more emphasis on it. I called the third down. The third down's earlier, the money down. The fourth quarter is the most important quarter. The red zone, you don't want to leave points on the field. Okay, how do quarterbacks play? How does a quarterback play? How does a player, how does a team play in the situations that tend to matter just a little bit more? Here's what I would say. Is Dylan elite yet? No, not quite. He can be. The ceiling is very, very high. He has first-round talent, okay, potentially someday, as we know. What is he right now? Is Dylan Raiola clutch? He just might be. I'm certainly starting to see him in that vein just a little bit more each and every week. I no longer dread close games, falling behind, or fourth quarter collapses. The team as a whole has shown that they'll fight back, has shown that they'll play their best ball in the fourth quarter. Let's work on those middle two quarters as well. But it starts with Dylan because it starts with your quarterback. Now, is he the most fleet of foot quarterback? No, he's not. But he's decisive this year. When he takes off and runs, he's decisive. And that's all I've ever asked for him to be. Some folks think he might hold on to the ball just a little bit too long. Okay. Are the receivers getting open? Is he making the proper reads? Does he have time? It all goes hand in hand. I will say this, Dana Holgorsen last week during his Tuesday press conference said, hey, it all goes hand in hand. He also said, hey, there was a few plays that I called versus Michigan State. Probably not the best situation, and it put our offensive line in some tough one-on-ones, and then our tackles got beat, and we gave up more sacks versus Michigan State than we would have liked. And I thought Dana made a great adjustment. And I thought he called a great game. Let's establish the run game. By the way, let's get the ball to Emmett Johnson a whole lot freaking more. And then it was a lot of quick passes, screens, keeping Maryland off balance. The leading sack team in the entire Big Ten got one sack on Saturday because the offensive line played better. I thought Holgorsen called a very good game, and that all goes hand in hand. So again, is Dylan Raiola a good quarterback? Absolutely. Again, with a very, very high ceiling. All right, now is he a leader? Yeah, I believe he is. The last 2 years, when I brought current offensive players on the show, this year, guys like Emmett Johnson, Ja'Cory Barney, Luke Lindenmeyer. Last year, guys like Jamal Banks, Thomas Fidone. Every single one of them, without fail, just ranted and raved about how much they loved Dylan. And it was not out of obligation, or I have to say this, or I'm supposed to say this. It was very, very legit. In fact, when I interviewed Ja'Cory last week, he goes, that's my guy. I've got his back. I'll ride with that guy. So it is very, very legit, and he has the trust and faith of his teammates and the guys playing with, for, and around him. All right, does he need to continue to improve? Yes. Yes, absolutely he does. But does he play in his best ball in the fourth quarter? Yes, he does. And is that what it matters the most? Yeah. All right, now last week he struggled with 3 interceptions in the first 3 quarters, including a 60-yard pick six, which gave Maryland the lead. And when the Turtles had gone on and scored 17 unanswered points to go erase a 10-point deficit because Nebraska was up by 10 to lead 31-24. And now it's like, now what do? You throw 3 interceptions, you throw the pick six of over 60-yard return for a pick six for a touchdown to give the other team the lead. How do you bounce back? That's what matters the most to me while we continue to improve throughout this process with a kid who's smart, who's got the faith of his teammates around him, and who's got a high ceiling and is only going to get better. But in the meantime, how do you react when you get punched in the face with difficulty and challenges and adversity? All right, what did he do? 2 straight scoring drives. Led us down the field for a field goal, okay? And the team honestly executed the best when the game was on the line. Think about that last game-winning 81-yard touchdown drive. So we go score a field goal, make it 31-27, and then the game-winning touchdown drive with about 2 minutes to go, 81 yards. The team executed the best. Dylan executed the best. He had pinpoint accuracy, 4 of 5 on that drive, 72 yards passing through the game-winning touchdown pass. 2 of my favorite throws of the entire day were those 2 passes he completed on the sideline to our tight ends, Luke Lindenmeyer and Heinrich Haber. Great catches by those guys as well. All right, at this point in time, I'm going to pause the video, and when I come back, I will react to whatever was or was not said at Matt Rhule's weekly Monday press conference. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Rhule did indeed respond to the Rhule and Penn State rumors. All right, a couple of things we're going to throw up on your screen real quick. Pete Nako's on 3. Matt Rhule is viewed as an early front runner for the job at Penn State. Matt Rhule, Kurt Cignetti, Matt Campbell, and the like. And then you see the odds here as well for guys who were high candidates, top candidates for the job. Some people have Matt Rhule as the odds-on favorite to be the next Penn State head coach. Bill O'Brien, Kurt Cignetti, Lane Kiffin. Different lists have different people listed as a favorite, have different guys on different lists. Matt Rhule, Kurt Cignetti seem to be on all of them. All right. Oh, I did notice this. Look at the comment below. Matt Rhule and Nebraska offer 5-star 2027 running back Kevin Spell out of Pennsylvania. The #1 running back in the nation decommitted from Penn State earlier today. Hey, come to the good guys. I'm just saying. Penn State better save their recruiting class or we'll just take them, and that'd be all right with me because Nebraska will host recent Penn State decommit wide receiver Khalil Taylor for a visit on October 25th in Lincoln. The Huskers were named as one of the teams Taylor wanted to visit immediately following his decommitment. Now, here's some updates from guys who were directly at the press conference. All right, Matt Rhule's name is already being linked to Penn State's opening, but, and I quote, "I love Penn State, it's my alma mater," end quote. Rhule said, but according to Sean Callahan, he reaffirmed his focus on Nebraska. All right, next, Nebraska coach Matt Rhule getting started and talking about the firing of James Franklin at Penn State, and I quote, "I love Penn State. Met my wife there. It's my alma mater. I love Pat Kraft, and I'm really sad to see Coach Franklin go." End quote. More from Rhule on the potential distraction of the opening at Penn State, and I quote, "This is good. It's way better than when I was in Carolina and I was on the hot seat. Nothing has happened. The job's open. This is part of the deal. I'm the Huskers coach. This is a great job." He's talking about the Nebraska job being a great job. "This is a good thing. It hasn't happened here in a while, but it's going to happen." All right. Also later on, "I'm here. I'm not a cyborg. I have 2 little girls. I have a wife. I love it here. It's awesome." End quote. So complimenting Penn State, complimenting Nebraska, saying all the right things. According to Ms. Sherman, here's the important stuff from Matt Rhule's press conference on the Penn State opening. And I quote, "I'm not going to talk a lot about job openings when they come. I'm not going to talk about my contract here. I absolutely love it here. I want to continue to take steps needed to turn this place into a beast." End quote. Mitch says no definitive answers from him, as expected, on his potential involvement in that search. All right, Penn State AD Pat Kraft says the school will conduct a national coaching search. Kraft, and I quote, who has a prior relationship with Rhule from Temple, and I quote, "Our next coach will be somebody who embodies everything Penn State stands for, says that's integrity, accountability, toughness, humility, and an elite motivator," end quote. Jim Rose put this out. I thought it was interesting. Update on Coach Matt Rhule and his contract. His buyout is $49 million if he is fired, but if he leaves voluntarily, it's only $5 million. Changes the math fairly dramatically and suddenly makes him very affordable for Penn State. Got to look at all the factors here. It is what it is. My takeaway. My notes. Can you read them? I can't either. That's okay. I know what they say. First of all, think about this. Penn State is so confident they can find a better coach than James Franklin. They paid him $50 million not to coach there anymore. Can you imagine the pressure that the next head coach of Penn State's going to have? He's one of the best coaches in the country. James Franklin is. When he took over, it was a mess there. Now, Bill O'Brien kind of righted the ship a little bit, but it was a mess. He went 34-8 in recent years, and they were one play away from playing for a national championship last year, and it wasn't good enough. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the next head coach there at the University of Nebraska. And I will say this, just remember, coaches are people too. No need to do anything in front of a family, towards kids, towards family, anything like that. I've just seen some things with Franklin, unfortunate things. 99% of the fans are phenomenal. Okay, it's the 1% that's the squeaky wheel. All right, real quick, before I give my official thoughts on Matt Rhule and his response that he gave at the press conference to the Rhule to Penn State rumors, as always, check out 606 Auto Service in Lincoln. 606autoservice.com is the website. 2405 P Street in Lincoln, Nebraska is where they're located. They're locally owned for 20 years. Ask for Dean Phelps. He's the owner, or Eric or Jeff when you go in, and tell them that Adam Carriker sent you. They do great work at a very reasonable price. Now, as you know, we now have kids who are driving. Pray for us, but in the meantime, it's where my family and I take all of our vehicles to be taken care of. Everything from oil changes to engine replacements. They offer shuttle rides, loaner vehicles, and financing as well if it is needed. Again, 626 Auto Service in Lincoln. Nobody does it better. Check them out at 626autoservice.com. Matt Rhule, he's a good football coach. He's an alma mater there. He even said he came out wearing, what was it, a Penn State, he didn't say bib or onesie, sweatshirt, I believe is what he said. Loves Penn State. That's okay. There's logical ties between a good football coach, Matt Rhule, and Penn State. He also mentioned he has roots here. He has told me to my face that his wife loves it here. His kids go to school here. His girls play basketball and go to school here. His son, last we heard, went to the University of Nebraska. Anyways, not that I'm up to speed on all things that he's doing, but that was the last thing that we heard. His wife has started a business here in Lincoln. This has all been mentioned. They have put down roots here. He mentioned he's not a cyborg. These things do factor in. All right. Also, he's building something here in Lincoln. Think about what Penn State wants from their next head coach. Think about what wasn't acceptable from their next head coach. Meanwhile, here in Nebraska, there's something to be said for building up a program. And if you get to 8-9 wins this year, people are going to be happy. In fact, a jump is to 9 wins. I said I wouldn't jump for joy for 8 wins. I'd be happy, but I'd jump for 9. I said if we're 7-1 at the end of October, I take my shirt off, just like Pat McAfee on game day, just getting out of hand, and I'd wear that chain behind me, and I will. But that's the difference in level of expectation. Now, the scrutiny between Penn State and Nebraska is about the same. The level of expectations and what they're looking for from their programs right now is different. Now, in a couple years, Nebraska is going to be wanting to be in the college football playoff. Not that it can't happen right now. Okay, just stay with me. The expectations and what the brass, the guys in charge, the fan base is specifically looking for isn't exactly the same right now. So you got to keep that in mind. Also, if I'm a coach, what place is going to give me what I need to win? What's going to provide me with the resources and the NIL and the money and the revenue and everything that I need to win? I got to imagine it's relatively the same between Penn State and Nebraska. Now, just a reminder, and I mentioned this on my show yesterday. If you missed it, go back and check it out. What he told me face-to-face in his office over a year ago. It was over a year ago. It's just a random conversation that came up one day before the spring game. That's how long ago it was. The last time we had a spring game, it was the day before. But he said this, he loves it here. He wants this to be his last job. He's a good fit here. He's the perfect fit here. All right. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. Those are things that he told me. Keep in mind, this is the same man that watched what happened when you go coach at your alma mater. All right, Scott Frost, whoever's fault you think it is, that happened. And Matt Rhule was the next guy. So he kind of followed the aftermath of that. He knows what that looks like. He was here during the Trev Alberts thing. So he's seen that firsthand. Does that make Penn State more appealing, less appealing to him? All right. Now, he didn't say really anything definitive. He really didn't. He was complimentary in Nebraska. He was complimentary at Penn State. He didn't shut anything down definitively. Should he have? Should he have? What he said is why he didn't say anything definitive, because he said, I'm not going to comment on my current contract or job openings, which is why he wasn't definitive. So I get that. If you want to limit distractions, maybe you should be more definitive. But if you're not going to comment on things, then you can't be definitive, and that's your stance. I honestly am not crazy about it personally, but I'm not Matt Rhule, and it's his business. And if he's not going to comment, then he was complimentary, but he didn't comment directly, and he's not going to. And that's his stance. I can respect that. It doesn't give me quite what I was looking for, but that's okay. And here's the other thing. Remember last week, Bill Belichick, North Carolina? Bill Belichick said, I'm committed to North Carolina. North Carolina said, we're committed to Bill Belichick. And you know what everyone said? We don't believe you. So sometimes it doesn't really matter what you say because people are going to draw their own conclusions. All right. I want to talk about a couple other things real quick before we get to the questions. Number one, shout out to Emmett Johnson, the Week 7 College Football Offensive Player of the Week. The man is a stud. I've talked about a lot of these stats you have in front of you already, but 3.76 yards after contact per rush is what stood out to me. I thought this was cool. I mentioned in one of my previous shows that there were people from the Citrus Bowl at the Michigan State game. Now some of the new bowl projections have Nebraska playing, gag me you, potentially in the Citrus Bowl, Texas, for those listening on podcast. All right, final thoughts on the Maryland game. Heinrich Harburg said, and I quote, that's 5 years of not being able to get it done. Nebraska's Heinrich Harburg said 5 years of not being able to get it done. It's a completely different mindset this year, end quote. I love this. This was before the game. At Husk Guys on Twitter said, what if we just beat Maryland and we starts a winning streak and we just never lose again, just never ends. Kool-Aid Carriker's back. All right, as you know, Nebraska is ranked at number 25 in the AP poll for the first time since 2016. There's 5 Big Ten teams in the AP poll. Number 1, Ohio State. Number 3, Indiana. Number 8, Oregon. Number 20, USC. Number 25, Nebraska. Now, I have been asked about the hit that Dylan Raiola took after the interception on one of the returns. The defensive lineman hit him. Can I be honest with you? I'm always honest with you. It's different in college and the NFL today, but when I played at Nebraska and when I played in the league, an interception, the D-line coach is like, you go find the quarterback. Don't hit him in the back, don't hit him late, but you take him out legally because that's the one time we can hit him completely and utterly legally, and it's okay outside of a regular sack. It's different now. It's different rules, but just so you know, the quarterback kind of gets a target on him sometimes, right or wrong, and it is a different day and age in college football. All right, Nebraska volleyball 16-0, 6-0 in the Big Ten play, continues to dominate. All right, with a sweep, 25-23, 25-16, 25-15 at Purdue, who's pretty good in their own right, number 12 in the country. All right. This past weekend, Nebraska has not dropped a single set in Big Ten play. All right, Nebraska, depending on where you look, Nebraska opens as a 4-point favorite or a 5.5-point favorite. I've seen 6.5. 5.5 is the last one I saw. I quoted this a couple of days ago from Evan Bland, who does a phenomenal job. All right, Nebraska has lost the last 4 times they played at Minnesota. We are now a favorite against the Gophers early on. I will say this, I don't mind being corrected. The other day I said Nebraska won the coin toss, and elected to receive. I was incorrect. It was pointed out to me that we actually lost the coin toss. By the way, we're 0-6 on coin tosses so far this year. So I don't mind being corrected. Consider myself corrected. Nebraska's 0-6 on coin tosses this year. 5-1 on the scoreboard. And somebody mentioned to me, Adam, you say you don't bat 1,000. Well, Terrence Crawford bats 1,000. Touche, my friend. Touche. All right, here are my questions for you fine folks at home. Let me know your answer in the comments below. By the way, I've received more texts about the Rhule to rumors to Penn State stuff than I get texts all the time. I've gotten more texts about this than anything else since the football season started. But what's your gut reaction to Matt Rhule's response to the Penn State rumors? Let me know in the comments below. Number 2, is Dylan Raiola a clutch quarterback already, or does he need to do it another time or two? Maybe we just blow people out, but does he need to do it another time or two to officially be clutch in your mind? Let me know in the comments below. And number 3, will Dylan Raiola be an elite quarterback next year? Maybe you think he already is. Let me know in the comments. Go Big Red Nose. Remember,